Welcome to this presentation about the Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences Directorate. My name is Tricia Van Zant, and I'm the Program Director of the Human Networks and Data Science Program, which is located in the Behavioral and Cognitive Sciences Division of the Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences Directorate. They make us do an awful lot of things at the NSF, so in addition to, we call it HANDS, Human Networks and Data Science. In addition to HANDS, I've also been involved in programs across the agency, including pathways to enable open source ecosystems, integrating human behavior in epidemiological models, understanding rules of life. So lots of stuff. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Jorge. I'll let him introduce himself.
Yep, really excited. Thank you, Trish, to see you all and to engage with you about SBE. I am a program officer as well, and two of my programs are in the same division as Trish, the BCS division. Those are linguistics and a cross-agency program called the Dynamic Language Infrastructure Documenting Endangered Languages. So we call it DLI-DEL for short. That is a partnership with NEH, the National Endowment for the Humanities. And the third program, which I am also program officer for, is Build and Broaden, which is in the Office of Multidisciplinary Activities at the Directorate. I'm also involved with some other activities. The one that I will mention right now is the SBE-focused CREST centers. So CREST centers are Centers for Research Excellence and Technology, housed in the EDU Directorate. And these are to support MSI and research capacity building. And we do have currently a DCL out that is asking for SBE-focused research to submit CREST applications. And I am one of 2 points of contact for that DCL opportunity.
Thank you, Jorge. So at this point in the conference, you've probably heard a lot about all the different directorates at the NSF. You know that the NSF has 8 directorates and a couple of offices. SBE is the smallest of the directorates at the NSF. And the purpose of the SBE Directorate is to support research on people and society. And in particular, we focus on projects that involve human behavior across the lifespan. So in developmental sciences, for example, we're interested in how people grow and change over time. We also support research that studies social organizations, so how people work together in groups, how groups work together with other groups, and how all of the social, economic, and political factors, environmental factors affect our lives and our behavior. So I want to start first by talking about, there we go, the structure of the directorate. So we're divided up into 3 divisions and an office. And I just want to first talk about who's in charge. The assistant director so the director of the entire directorate, right, is Kay Feeling. She's just joined us. She's the assistant director. And then we have a deputy assistant director who is Evan Height. And then we have our 3 divisions within the directorate. That's BCS, or Behavioral and Cognitive Sciences, SES, which is the Social and Economic Sciences, and then we have the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics, or NCSES. And then we have also an office, it's not a division per se, the Office of Multidisciplinary Activities, which we call SMA. So in each of these divisions, we have a division director and a deputy division director. For BCS, the division director is Joan Sereno, and Antoinette Winkler-Prinz is the deputy division director. For SES, Alan Tompkins is the division director, and Rebecca Farrell is the deputy division director. And for NCSES, Emilda Rivers is the division director, and Christina Freeman is the deputy division director. And so, and all of us then, as program directors and the staff that supports SBE activities, report to these division directors and directors, and there's so many, there are lots of Ds. There's the triple Ds, and then there's the DDs, and this, but so it took me about 3 years to figure out how to assign D's to people. So, and you might want to ask at this point, why do you care? And so after a panel, when we want to make funding recommendations, we have to sit down with our division directors and explain what we want to fund, what we want to recommend. And they are actually the ones that make the final decision, or at least that approve our decisions. And so if they decide that they don't want to fund something, it does not get funded. So these are important people. I want to talk a little bit about the impact that SBE has. So about 63% of federal funding for academic research in the social and behavioral sciences comes from the NSF SBE Directorate. Our total budget in fiscal year 2023 was about $307 million. We received 3,300 proposals. From those proposals, we made about 750 awards that supported 6,500 people, spread across 350 institutions. And you can see the breakdown there of the individuals who are supported by these funds. For all of these proposals, we managed to obtain 17,000 reviews, which comes out to about 5 reviews per proposal. So we are always looking for reviewers, and we're always looking for panelists. If you would like to be a reviewer for the National Science Foundation or be a panelist, most of you have done reviewing for journals before. This is very different, and you learn a lot about the NSF, the agency, how it works by doing these reviews. And if you would like to participate, please just send us your name, and you will go on a list, I promise. So I'm going to talk about each of these divisions separately. I'm going to start with BCS. So it's kind of, there's always a lot of overlap between the programs in SBE, but BCS groups roughly all of those programs that are involved with individual behavior. So for example, we have programs like cognitive neuroscience, developmental sciences, linguistics, and so you can answer problems, study problems at the level of an individual. We also have in this directorate the archaeological and anthropological sciences that don't necessarily fit very well into that grouping of individual behavior. But we also have HEGS, which is the Human Environment and Geographical Sciences, and then my own program, which is Human Networks and Data Science. Human Networks and Data Science is interdisciplinary. It should not be grouped with anything, so it really kind of should be plastered on top of all of these groupings. And I'm sorry, language sciences too. I forgot to mention the language sciences, which as a psychologist, I think is also an individual behavior, but we'll talk about it later. Okay, so in addition, I put little asterisks next to each program that accept doctoral dissertation research improvement awards. So SBE is unique in offering, we call them DDRIs. SBE is unique in offering DDRIs awards across the agency. And these are funds that provide awards for resources that are not available usually at a student's institution. So the idea is actually to make up for a lack somehow. The way that you can spend those funds is pretty restricted. So while not all of the programs here support DDRIs, it's worthwhile reaching out to the program officers and asking about potential funding opportunities for undergraduate and graduate students. Now, as we go through, there's all of these programs are going to be coming at you, and I think you know now that every program has a web page. Right? Every program has a web page, and if any of these programs interest you, you should go to that web page and read about the program more, and that web page will have all kinds of really great information for you, and I'll go through that later. And please make sure that you read that program web page and any documents that are associated with it before you prepare a proposal. Okay, BCS. SES, the programs in SES are more focused on groups and group behavior. So you can see that sociology is in there. Science of organizations is in there. But you can also see that, for instance, methodology, measurement, and statistics is in there. So that's the sort of the methods program for the social sciences. We also have a new program that doesn't appear on here, and it's called RISBIS. I'm serious. Research Infrastructure in the Social and Behavioral Sciences. And so this program is supporting, for instance, the General Social Survey. So these big survey projects are now being supported by this. They just sort of got paired off and are now sitting in their own home program. And you can see also, both for BCS and for SES, these program names don't often follow the institutional academic silos that you might be used to. So for example, you don't see political science anywhere in here. Political science research is now supported by accountable institutions and behavior and security and preparedness. So that's where political science is. And again, you can see the asterisks that mark the programs that are accepting DDRI applications. So again, not all of these programs will have DDRI opportunities, so please make sure that you check the website and make sure that you get the most up-to-date information. Let me move real quickly to the Okay, there we go. To the Office of Multidisciplinary Activities. So this is not a division, it's an office. So it doesn't have the same kinds of program structure that the divisions do. But the purpose for SMA is to support activities that cut across those divisions, in particular activities that involve student training in the SBE sciences, capacity building at minority serving institutions, and also the ethical conduct of research. Let me say a few things about REU activities. So there's two REU, correct me when I get wrong, okay. There are two REU activities. One are REU supplements, REU, Research Experience for Undergraduates. So you can actually submit an award, a new proposal with an REU request in it. That's one way to request REU funds. You can also request a supplement to an existing award. But we also have what are called REU sites. And so REU sites are separate from the supplements. The REU sites are designed to provide research opportunities that have some central theme that are based on a single discipline or a particular focused research problem. And they could be like within a department or across departments, interdisciplinary efforts. So you might want to check that out. And then there's, of course, the science of broadening participation, which supports SBE research on expanding participation in major societal institutions and the workforce and education to enable informed decisions and the design of programs that engage diverse groups. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, let me just say a couple of words here just very quickly. One, the REU sites, it's important to note that can attract students from anywhere in the US, so it's not specific to the institution. So it's basically, you can think of it as a summer research opportunity in which you can make an application call and receive students from across the US. So that's in contrast to the REU supplements, which would be a supplement for an undergraduate student at your institution, right? So just wanted to clarify that. And then I am on the Science of Broadening Participation working group. This is an interesting opportunity because it does have its own funds available, but it's not a standalone program. So you would submit to one of the established programs, but if your research is relevant, so in other words, you are addressing societal barriers to specific underrepresented groups and thinking about theoretical ways in which we can broaden participation in STEM fields. Or if you are being extremely inclusive, very inclusive in your own research practices, then you would mark your proposal as being relevant for SBP, and then we would take a look as a working group at that proposal, assuming that it's after it's been recommended for funding through its established program, and that could be an opportunity to get access to more funds.
Thank you. I think
Maybe more center?
there we go. No, it's just really slow. Okay, so I want to return then to the divisions now. And so the last division in the directorate is NCSES. And NCSES really stands alone. The purpose of SES is one of 13 federal statistical agencies, and it has a different governance structure than the other divisions and offices at the agency. And the purpose of NCSES is to collect data on science and engineering, the science and engineering workforce. And so it doesn't have funding opportunities that are like the other funding opportunities in the directorate, but there are two ways that NCSES can support research. One is through what's called a broad agency announcement, and the NCSES releases one of these every year, and it simply says, these are the kinds of things that we're really worried about right now. Here's the kind of research that we're looking to support. And you can respond to these broad agency announcements with a proposal. The second is that they do have one grant program that is more traditional in the sense that it looks like the other grant programs. And it's called Research on the Science and Technology Enterprise, Indicators, Statistics, and Methods. And this program is going to, it funds, again, these data collection survey efforts, data collection and delivery systems. I can show you some of the surveys that NCSES monitors. I know that you've heard of some of these. I've highlighted 4 at the bottom that I'm sure that many of you must be familiar with. The survey of doctorate recipients has been going on for decades. I got my doctorate in 1992, and I've been a participant in this survey ever since. All of these other surveys, again, are collecting important data about what happens with students after they graduate, where are they going, how productive are they being successful. And these surveys are all extraordinarily important because they provide the statistics that determine which research areas need to be funded, which research areas are making the most progress. And so if you haven't looked at the NCSES website before, I encourage you to do so. You can download a lot of data from that website. I teach statistics, so I get really excited when I find a website that will give me like vast quantities of data. And it's super interesting. And they have reports that you might find very interesting, such as last year they released the report on diversity in STEM, women, minorities, and persons with disabilities. So there's some really interesting work that they do. And you can draw on these data for your own research, right? So it's not trivial. Okay, I want to make a little sidebar before we go into the programs and how to find programs, and that these are some useful terms. The NSF, like all federal agencies, is totally addicted to their acronyms. And I know that you've heard a lot of acronyms yesterday and today, and I hope that you've heard all of these already, but let's just make sure we're all on the same page. The PAPG, that's your Bible, right? So you need to make sure that you read your Bible every day, and you need to make sure that you follow that PAPG, because that is the most important document for NSF proposals. The NSF also releases publications called Dear Colleague letters. We call them DCLs. Dear Colleague letters provide general information about amendments to policy, changes to policy, upcoming funding opportunities, new opportunities, or special competitions. Some DCLs talk about now you can get a supplement to an award. So if you have we did this for harnessing the data revolution. We had some extra funds, and so it's like if you want to fund, let's say, statistical education at your university or data science at your university, send us a letter, send us a proposal, and so DCLs are really interesting. They'll come flying through on if you're signed up for NSF mailing lists. So I highly recommend that you subscribe to any one of the numerous NSF mailing lists that are available, and you will get these DCLs on a regular basis. I also want to talk about dates. So programs have different dates when they want you to submit proposals. So there are deadline dates and target windows, and those are all different things. A deadline is a hard deadline. You have to submit by that date or your proposal will be returned without review. You'll have to wait until the next deadline to submit if you miss a deadline. A target date is a date by which we would like to see proposals, but if they come in after that, we'll still accept them. But if you wait too long and you miss the panel date, then you're just going to have to wait for the next competition. And some programs have what's called a target window, and that's a 2-week window within which proposals will be accepted. Some programs now have no deadline at all, so you can submit whenever you want. Sociology now has no deadline at all. Let's see. So program solicitation, some programs have a solicitation. And what that means is that there are special requirements for a proposal that are not in the PAPG. The programs that do not have a solicitation, all you have to do is follow the PAPG. But if a program has a solicitation, you must read that solicitation. You must understand what the special requirements are. So for example, my program requires 2 additional documents that are not specified in the PAPG. So please make sure that you understand the program solicitation, read it carefully. Program announcement is simply an announcement that may come through, it's a publication like a solicitation, but it just announces that there is this program and that it's a funding opportunity that may be of interest. And finally, every program has a program description on its webpage, and I'm going to return to a discussion of that webpage in a few seconds. Okay. So before I leave this structure of the SBE Directorate, I want to talk a little bit about interdisciplinary programs. And there are 2 kinds of interdisciplinary programs in SBE. One are cross-directorate programs, and the other is cross-agency programs. So I've listed here a couple of cross-directorate programs. These programs involve SBE and other directorates within the agency. So for example, best example of this is SATSI, Secure and Trustworthy Cyberspace. It's a very popular program. It involves SBE. It involves in total 5 of the directorates in the agency, and that includes MPS, SISE, EDU, I'm not going to remember them all, but there are a lot of directorates that are involved in SATSI. Did you want to say anything about any of these? Or
well, I already mentioned CREST, so I'll just say it one more time. That one is an opportunity with EDU, the EDU directorate.
Okay, thanks. So one thing that's important to keep in mind with these cross-directorate programs is that sometimes they're limited in their duration. They sunset. And so you might see these archived announcements for these programs. Make sure that you are looking at the most up-to-date program webpage so that you can determine whether or not that program is still accepting proposals. Here's a partial list of the cross-agency programs. So these are programs that involve not just the NSF, but also NIH, NEH. You can see a lot of those there. I'm involved, as I said earlier, with the Incorporating Human Behavior in Epidemiological Models, which is an effort between NIH and NSF. And the goal there is to put epidemiologists, mathematicians together with social and behavioral scientists so that we can get better models of epidemics and pandemic spread. Did you want to say something about DLIDEL?
Yeah, so DLIDEL is one of the programs that I co-manage, and this is one with a partnership with NEH. And it's a really interesting program because it also is attempting to sort of bring together computational approaches, NLP tools, with the documentation of endangered languages. So that sort of review process involves our NEH colleagues. We are all together, and then we do make separate funding decisions, but it's sort of NSF is in charge of the review process itself. So these cross-agency programs have some particulars about the ways that they're run, but in any case, these are really great opportunities. Yeah, so the point about funding is really, really important. So for these cross-agency programs, a proposal could be funded by NSF, it could be funded by NIH, or it could be funded by both. So, it's a really nice way to, get money. So, just hit me if I say anything that's out of pocket. Yeah. Where's my censor button?
Yeah, exactly. So now as well, you've seen, when we talk about different kinds of awards, we talk about award mechanisms. And you've seen some of these already. You saw the discussion of the eager and the rapid proposals yesterday. We are going to talk about career proposals tomorrow, and I'll say a few words about them in a few moments. Let's see what I want to say here. So I already discussed the doctoral dissertation research improvement grants, and I mentioned that not all programs will accept DDRIGs, and this is also true of eagers and rapids. Not all programs will accept proposals using all of these mechanisms. So you really need to talk to your program director before you work on a proposal and make sure that that program accepts these different kinds of mechanisms. And before I get into finding funding, I do want to say also a few words about EPSCoR jurisdictions. So you may be aware that NSF is strongly committed to increasing participation of institutions from these jurisdictions. And so these are states and territories that are historically underfunded relative to other states and territories, although I think all of the territories are EPSCoR jurisdictions, right?
Except DC, I guess, which
Except
is not a territory,
DC,
but
right, which is not, yeah, right. So there can be additional funding for proposals from these jurisdictions. And so why is there this pressure to fund proposals from these jurisdictions? Well, the problem has to do with what we call the missing millions. And have we heard that term yet in the conference? Missing millions refers to the fact that we are lacking representation from underrepresented individuals. And this is, when we speak about diversity, we're not just talking about ethnic groups or geographic, I'll stop there before I say something stupid. But these are individuals and communities and institutions who are not yet engaged in the STEM enterprise. And so we get really huge disparities in terms of racial groups and ethnic groups and gender representation. And so making sure that we have funding for these jurisdictions is trying to rectify some of these longstanding problems. Diversity in science is so important. I mean, we're talking about very complicated social problems that the SBE directorate is trying to work toward solutions for. And without the participation of these underrepresented groups, I mean, we're just not going to make the progress that we want. So this is a super important effort. Did you want to say anything? Yeah.
Yes, please. So EPSCoR is a federally mandated sort of decision, right, and they have set the map, and the map is set for the next several years. And we have these thresholds that we're going to have to match. But just as Trish said, geographical diversity is just one of the metrics of diversity that we have, right? And so we've mentioned some of these research capacity programs that we have at SBE where, in the social sciences, diversity science is a really an increasingly important component of the ways that we carry out our research. So one thing I want to say is, if you're not at an EPSCoR jurisdiction or if you're not at an MSI, that doesn't mean that these opportunities preclude you, but the way that you need to think about it is the quality of partnerships and allyships that you can form with your resources to these other areas. So for example, the program Build and Broaden that I co-manage, this is focused on MSIs, but it can be through partnerships. And the part of the panel, so the solicitation specific criteria for that program is that if it's an MSI partnered with a non-MSI, what is the nature and quality of that partnership? Is it extractive, in which case it will be reviewed poorly, or is there truly a partnership that's being formed there? So I want to encourage all of you to think about this, sort of this focus on diversity science as opportunities for everyone so that we can advance SBE science all together rather than as separate opportunities.
Thank you, Jorge. That's excellent. Okay. So let me say a few words about career proposals. Tomorrow, yes, sure. Yeah.
The EPSCoR jurisdictions, would it be prudent for a non-EPSCoR state institution to partner with one of these to help elevate them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes. So, collaborative proposals, right? Collaborative proposals come from multiple institutions, and absolutely, I would highly, highly recommend that if it makes sense for your research. Yeah, go ahead. Can you use the microphone, please?
I can speak loud enough.
We need to use the mic for the online. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry about that. Thank you. With regards to the jurisdiction on the website, and I agree with what she said about the pairing and partnerships, where on the website can we find those actual listings so that we can reach out to maybe universities in that area or organizations just to see how we can start building that partnership?
As Jorge mentioned, this is a federal categorization of states and territories. So if you just Googled EPSCoR jurisdictions, it will be the first thing that pops up. It's not necessarily an NSF
listing or anything. Okay.
And similarly, for the MSI designation, we use Department of Education standards for that. So you would just, find a list of MSIs, and that would give you sort of opportunities for partnership.
Awesome. Thank you.
By the way, Rutgers University has a long-standing MSI list that I use all the time, and it's amazing. Go ahead.
Great. So I have a question about how exactly, logistically, the EPSCoR funding stuff is going to work within, the panel. So if you have a panel and then they're reviewing things, is the question of EPSCoR just something that's discussed then, or is it something that's at the program director level? Just curious about the logistics.
It's more at the program director level. So it's usually we use a co-funding mechanism for EPSCoR states, or we just fund it. We don't even have to worry about involving other programs. So did you want to say anything about that, or? I don't know that there's much more to say, but.
Well, so in the merit review procedure itself, we often instruct our panelists to, let us know if there are certain attributes of the institution, of the researchers, of the research groups that are being studied that would be valuable to a portfolio. Right. So those are things that can come up in discussion, and we encourage those. And so they become a part of a holistic sort of evaluation of that proposal. And then as far as EPSCoR goes, so that could be something that's a part of the discussion. But what I think is important to sort of distinguish is that the agency overall is looking for matching these goals, our threshold goals for EPSCoR funding. There are separate funding opportunities for EPSCoR jurisdictions as well, right? So it's kind of two separate things, but that share the same name. So there can be opportunities where we have a certain list of proposals from EPSCoR jurisdictions, and then agency-wide, there's a call, let us know what of your EPSCoR jurisdictions have competitive proposals. There's a co-funding opportunity.
Right.
And then there's the other sort of avenue, which is, and this is true for linguistics, for example, we have a lot of work to do in linguistics. In part, it's because linguistics departments are not often in all types of universities. But regardless, our EPSCoR thresholding right now in linguistics is pretty low. So in these next few years in linguistics, we are going to set as our own research priority increased sort of funding metrics to be able to better match those agency goals. So that's kind of a window into the ways that we kind of make these decisions.
Yeah, but in terms of what the panel discusses, a proposal either comes from an EPSCoR jurisdiction or it doesn't. And so it's it is, as Jorge said, it is important to identify that someone is from a minority serving institution, or that we're talking about a disabled PI or something like that. But it's not necessarily like, it's like, is this a good EPSCoR jurisdiction? That's not something that's going to come up in discussion. Yeah, go ahead. This is our last question for this one. Go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. Just because you mentioned about EPSCoR jurisdiction, I'm wondering if you're talking about the location of institution, or you're talking about the location of our study area. For example, my institution is from Ohio, right? But I'm studying social vulnerability in Kentucky. So how do you consider that?
But the money is going to an institution, right? Your award money is going to your institution. So it's where the institution is located. Okay, so let's move on and talk about career proposals just really briefly, because you're going to have a whole session on this tomorrow. So that's at 10:45 tomorrow morning. There are a couple of resources for you. The 2024 Career Program informational webinar was May 20th, but there's a recording of that online for you if you'd like to watch it. There's also going to be another webinar on June 7th for proposal submission logistics. So this is a program that has a hard deadline, and this year's deadline is July 24th. And I'm going to warn you that the career POs are merciless. And if you miss that deadline, you are going to have to wait until next year. You might be able to convince a smaller program officer, for the officer of a smaller program to excuse you if you miss the deadline, but you're not going to be able to convince the career POs for that. So if you want to make this year's deadline, you make sure you make this year's deadline. And remember, that's 5 p.m. at your institution's location. That needs to be submitted. Once, so suppose that you submit your career award and you get funded. Congratulations. That's awesome. You are now also a candidate for the Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers. You do not have to do anything to become a candidate for that award except to get a career award. Everything will be done by the program officers after that. So I advise you very strongly to follow the career solicitation as well as the solicitation of the program that is going to be handling your career award. So you're going to have you have two things that you're going to have to satisfy for a career, two entities that you need to satisfy for a career award. And remember also that co-PIs are not permitted on career proposals. The proposal is yours and yours alone. And also be aware that there are not separate funds for career awards, right? So the careers are coming out of that main program's budget. And so that's going to have implications for your strategy about whether you want to submit a career versus a regular proposal. It's going to depend on the budget you're requesting, and it's going to depend on the budget of the program. So it's just something to think about and something to talk about with the program officer of the program that will handle your career.
Question.
I have a quick question, I believe, from the online audience. Do cross-directorate programs accept career proposals?
Sometimes you need to check. Okay, so let's talk about how to find programs. So I think this is probably the most important part of today's presentation. So there's a couple of mechanisms that you can use to determine what the most appropriate program for your project is. Let's go to the last bullet list here. I really highly recommend that you subscribe to NSF announcements and newsletters. I've put a link there for you. These announcements come out on a daily basis, and these announcements will include things like DCLs, program announcements, information about webinars, office hours, all kinds of good stuff. So, including job openings at the NSF. So, I highly recommend that you subscribe. But there's two ways to search the NSF system for awards and programs, and one is the funding search engine, and the other one is the award search. So if we talk about the funding search tool, the website is there, but if you just Google NSF funding search tool, this website will pop. It'll be the first one that pops up. And you can search by keyword. So suppose you're interested in something like digital political science, right? And so you're going to put that in the funding search field, and it's going to pop up with all kinds of interesting stuff. You can see at the bottom that you can filter that search by directorate. I actually would not recommend filtering by directorate, but I'll explain why in just a minute. You're going to get results that look kind of like this. So you're going to get a bunch of programs in which those terms are found in the program's awards that they've made. And so my program is there, Human Networks and Data Science, and there's a link that you can click that will take you right to the program webpage. You can, on the right-hand side, you can also see the program's next deadline and any additional information, such as a solicitation that might be required there, or that might be available. You can also see that Dear Colleague letters are going to pop up. And so this is a way that you can find programs, right, but not necessarily awards that have been made. And I think, actually, from my personal experience, I think it's more useful to talk about looking at awards. When you click on, and I'll get to that in a second, when you click on a program in that funding search output, it will take you to the program's webpage. And so you'll see at the very, let me go back a minute. I did want to mention, you see how under Human Networks and Data Science it says supports research that studies the behavior of individuals, et cetera, okay? This is just a really short 2-sentence description of the program. Please don't base your choice of a program on that 2-sentence description. Okay, it is an insufficient basis for choosing a program for your research. If you go to the program webpage, though, what you'll see at the very top is that 2-sentence description that showed up in the award search output. But you'll also see a program synopsis, which gives you a much more detailed picture of what the program is looking to support. On the right-hand side, again, you'll see that really important information about when proposals are due. Contact information will be there, so you'll see the program directors and the support staff who are assigned to a particular program. On the right-hand side, you see program guidelines. Super important. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But you can also, at the very bottom of the program webpage, you'll see that big blue button that says Browse Projects supported by this program or funded by this program. That's going to take you to an award search webpage that shows you all of the abstracts and information about the awards that the program has made. If you go up to the very top of a program webpage, you'll see like some fancy artwork at the top and the program title. But off on the right-hand side, if you see that blue box right there, if there's a blue box that says View Guidelines with a publication number, that means that the program has a solicitation. And so that means there are extra requirements for that program, and you need to read the solicitation. Let's see. So you guys are like, a lot of you are university instructors, right? And you know when the student comes to you and says, when is the exam? And you say, did you not read the syllabus? When I started as a program director, the most shocking thing I learned was that PIs don't read the solicitation. Please read the solicitation, please. It breaks my heart to have to return a proposal without review because it violates the solicitation guidelines. I know how much effort goes into a proposal, and when I have to return one without review, it means you have to wait for another 6 months to a year to make another submission to my program. I hate doing that. I just hate it. Please read the solicitation. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Two short questions. The first is, do you need an ID to search previous proposals?
No, anybody can do it.
And secondly, with the solicitations, are they inclusive or are they on top of the PAPG?
On top of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you have to follow both the PAPG and the solicitation. There are sometimes, exceptions to the PAPG, right? So for example, proposals are supposed to be 15 pages long, right? Not always. The solicitation might say that you have an additional 2 pages for something specific. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So a couple questions from online. For the career awards, I want to confirm that you have to be faculty. There are emerging individuals
Yes.
classified as staff administrators. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And then I have one more question from earlier.
Hang on a second about the career question.
Oh, yes. Excuse me. Go ahead.
It depends on the institution's classification of faculty, though. So, for example, whether you're a clinical or research professor versus an assistant tenure track professor, that depends on the institution.
Yeah.
Great. And then I have one other one from just a little bit earlier. Could you share how qualitative researchers working across cultural anthropology and sociology traditions tend to most effectively situate their work within these directorate divisions?
That is going to be a research-specific question, and I encourage the person to reach out to a program director to discuss that in more detail.
Thank you.
Let's see, where were we? Okay. So if you do an advanced awards, what I want you to do is Google, I love Google, NSF Advanced Award Search, okay? And this is the page that's going to pop up. And it's got 3 sections to it. The top part says, oh, and make sure you say advanced award search, not just award search. The top part talks about awardee information. So like, for example, if you know that your thesis advisor has published a lot in an area that maybe you want to start publishing in, you maybe want to put that person's name in there in the field and see what awards that person has gotten. Program information, if you're only interested in, let's say, HAGS, geography projects, you could restrict your award search to just to HAGS. And again, I would recommend that you not do that for reasons that I'm going to explain in just a second. But you can also do a keyword search. Now, you can't do a keyword search in the regular award search. You can only do it in the advanced award search. And so that's why I like the advanced award search rather than just the regular old award search. You want your keywords. So you're going to do something like you're going to put digital political science in there, right? And then you see on the right-hand side next to keyword where it says hint, data prior to 1976 may be, my eyes can't see this well anymore, may be less complete, and then it has active awards checked. Also make sure you check expired awards because an NSF award can only last 5 years, right? So if you don't check expired awards, you're going to miss all of those earlier awards that have already been closed. So make sure that you check that, and then you've got something like political science or something put in there in the keyword. And this is what will pop up as your results. And hopefully it won't be too very long, but let's see, what did we get? It will tell you at the top how many results there were. This was 99 results. And so you can see that there are a bunch of titles clarifying the relationship between socioeconomic status and early psychological reasoning, for example. And so you can also filter the search results on the basis of the state. So you could look, for example, at a particular EPSCoR jurisdiction if you wanted. You can refine your search by directorate. You can look for award amounts. So let's say you're looking for conference awards, perhaps, and so you want to keep the number a little bit small. You can also look at award instruments. But in any case, so you can filter those awards and kind of cut the amount down a little bit. But if you click on the title, you'll be taken to the public abstract of the project. And the public abstract may not be the thing that's most interesting to you because that's written for a very lay audience. So it's not going to have like any interesting technical details in it. But the purpose of that is to explain why the project is important and what the PIs are doing. So so those abstracts are really, they're super interesting, they're super important, and they're super easy reading. So I highly recommend that you browse through those abstracts. But above the abstracts, you get this information table, which will have the award title in it. It will also have the program director who is responsible for managing that award, the duration of the award. So if you're wondering, well, do I want a 3-year award or a 4-year award or a 5-year award, you can take a look and you can see, well, people who are doing work in this general area, they kind of ask for 3 years of support, so maybe that's what I'll ask for. You can look at the amount. So if you've got your budget down and it's $2.3 million, right? And then you look at all of these awards that have been funded by a particular program and they average out to be like $300,000, you might want to reconsider that budget. And there's a bunch of other things that you can look at. I want to direct your attention to the very bottom where it says primary program source. So that's not only going to have the primary program that manages that award, but it's going to have any co-funding programs. And this is why I don't want you to filter your results by a single directorate or program, because there are a lot of projects that are co-funded. And like I remember, we talked about the cross-agency and the cross-directorate funding mechanisms. You're going to miss those if you make your search too narrow. Let's see. So what do I want to say? So once you've done this and you've looked at a couple of awards and you see, oh, Van Zandt keeps supporting research in this area involving these keywords, maybe she's the person that I should reach out to about my project. So make a note of the program that's doing the funding, make a note of the program director who's managing the award, and then what you're going to do is you're going to reach out to that program director. Let me say a few words before I talk about contacting program directors. Let me say a few words about co-review, the fact that there are often more than one program that's involved in supporting a project. So co-review means that your proposal is going to go to 2 panels. It's going to go, let's say you're going to submit to linguistics, and this is a project on large language models, so maybe you also want someone in computer science to take a look, right? So what you want to do is request co-review, or what you can do is request co-review on the cover sheet of your proposal. And this morning when Stephanie was taking you through research.gov, she showed you where to select. She went through that pretty fast. I don't think she showed you how to select a co-reviewing program, but you can select what's called a secondary unit of consideration. When we say unit, we mean program, and consideration meaning we want that program to look at the proposal as well. So you can do that through research.gov right there on that cover page. Yeah, go ahead.
Does being co-reviewed by multiple programs hurt your chances?
An excellent question. Okay, so I described this to my PIs with a Venn diagram. The sample space is, do you get funded or not, right? So that's the outcome of your proposal as you submit it to the NSF. Within that sample space is the yes, I got funded, no, I didn't get funded. The yes, you got funded is 2 intersecting circles, right? This is linguistics like my proposal, and this is intelligent and robust intelligence liked my proposal, right? And so they both go to panel. We've got this interaction here. So we have both programs like my proposal, only linguistics like my proposal, only robust intelligence like my proposal. Your probability of getting funded is not the intersection, it's the union. A co-reviewed proposal can be funded, can be supported by one program, even if the other program hated it.
So you might even say you would want to
Yes.
get that.
Yes. The only, bingo, yes. The only issue that would force you into the intersection is the size of your budget. If your budget is such that one program can't support it alone, you need to have both programs on board. So it's something to consider when you're requesting a budget.
Can I ask a follow-up question to
Yes.
that? Say there are potentially two ways to go about a thematically interdisciplinary proposal. Say you could request this, or you could submit it to one of those cross-directorate programs.
That's right, yeah.
How would you decide which one is more appropriate?
You talk to the program directors and they help you make that decision.
Thank you.
Even if you don't request co-review, program directors may decide to co-review a proposal anyway. So we do this all the time. Proposals are like baseball cards to us. We pass them, we trade them, we pass them around, and it's what we do to make sure that our budgets can stretch to fund the best possible research that we can fund.
And vice versa, right? Where you listed co-review request and that program, the other program chooses not to co-review.
Right. Yeah. So it's a safety net. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up question. Does the career review apply also to career awards?
Yes, it can. It can. And what's that? Okay. And remember too that reviews, you get reviews from multiple perspectives. So, if you've got a large language model proposal and, you want it to be considered by linguistics and by, let's say, SATC, you get people from different perspectives who are able to weigh in on different components of the proposal. You get really good feedback, both as a PI and as a program officer. And so it's never a bad thing. Yeah.
Can the multiple programs be outside of SBE as well?
Yes.
So, okay.
Okay, so quickly, I'm out of time. Again, before you apply, please read the PAPG and please read the program solicitation. It's so important. We don't want to have to return your proposals without review. And so how do you contact a program officer? After you know which programs you want to inquire about, prepare a 1 to 2 page summary of your project, and then email that summary to the program officers that you have identified as a result of your search, and get feedback about your project and its fit to the programs. Sometimes we get a lot of these. It depends on when the program deadline is. So make sure that you give us enough time to respond. By all means, you should nag us if we have not responded to you within a reasonable amount of time. And some programs, such as mine, offer office hours. So make sure you go to the webpage and check and see what resources are available. You can request a Zoom appointment. You can request a phone call. Do reach out to us, though. This is what we're being paid for, is to help you through this process, and it's our job to contact you. That's not to say that we can help you write your proposal, okay? You are the experts. Please do not ask us, what kind of research should I propose? What will you fund, okay? You need to make that decision, and it's our job to guide you through the process. Okay, I am way out of time.
Can we jump to the broader impacts, the last?
Yes, so I'm gonna jump forward because I am out of time here. It just went by so fast. One problem that researchers have with their proposals is the broader impacts part. We're all scientists, the intellectual merits, we're awesome on those. Broader impacts are much more difficult for us to handle. And so here's some resources for you for broader impacts. On the left is the QR code for the ERIS toolkit, which I just learned about yesterday. It's absolutely phenomenal. It will help you put together your broader impact section. And on the right is the SBE Dear Colleague letter about broader impacts, which gives you a lot of guidance about what is considered a broader impact and how they are evaluated. Go ahead.
Thanks. I have a really quick question. So when reaching out to the POs or PDs,
I have someone who is kind of trying to narrow down between 3 different ideas. I'm a research administrator. Can he reach out and sort of say, I would like to talk through which of these ideas fits best, or does it need to be narrowed down to one?
No, that's fine. You can ask which of these ideas is most exciting to you. That's fine. What we can't do is say, this one is more fundable, or we can say things like, this one is a better fit to the program than this other one. That's perfectly legitimate. Yeah. So I had to skip over some bits, but I only have a little bit of time left, so I think I'm going to leave it there. Are there any other questions? Any online?
We just had one more from the virtual audience from a little bit earlier. Does STEM and sciences refer to all academic disciplines funded by NSF? I've usually heard this meant to exclude social sciences.
No, social science is a science, so that's included in STEM. Other questions? Okay. Oh, one more.
In the meantime, please just talk to us during the next coffee break, et cetera. We really would love to chat with you all through tomorrow.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So one quick question is about the career award. Now, for me, I started my faculty career just a few years ago because I was in the industry. Is that career award only for people who are is there any age limit or anything?
You cannot be, as long as you are untenured, you are in an academic position, you're considered faculty. However, your institution defines that, you are eligible for a career award.
Understand. And the last question is, someone mentioned to me that if you are going to make a proposal, there is a possibility that you can ask the program director about what type of reviewers they may be seeking, so you may have a better idea about how your proposal will get.
You can ask. Some program directors will tell you the kinds of people that they look for, and some will not.
Okay.
My tip there is definitely, though, use the list of suggested reviewers. Absolutely use it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in research.gov, one of the documents that you can upload is a list of suggested reviewers. You'd be amazed at how few people use that. Please give us suggested reviewers. You're the best person to determine who's. Yeah.
We'll do offline.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.